Do you know there's a gas station in Texas that people drive 3 hours out of their way just to visit? Families plan entire road trips around it. Grown adults get emotional about its snacks. It even holds 2 Guinness World Records and is worth somewhere between $2 and $6 billion. Now here's the part that drives Wall Street insane. It's owned by 2 guys who have never sold a single share to anybody, will not take their phone calls, and have no intention of ever changing that. This is the story of Buc-ee's, and the family no banker on earth can touch. Chapter 1. The gas station that broke every rule. Let's just be honest for a second. Every gas station you've ever stopped at is essentially the same grim experience. Sticky floors, a bathroom you'd rather not describe, a hot dog that's been slowly rotating under a heat lamp since roughly the last presidential administration. Nobody enjoys stopping at one. We only do it because the highway gives us no choice, and that, right there, has been the entire business model of the gas station industry for about a century. You have to stop somewhere, so it doesn't actually matter if we're any good. And then there's Buc-ee's. A place where the parking lot has more pumps than some airports have gates. Where the bathrooms are so clean they've literally won national awards. Where there's a wall of beef jerky, a brisket carved fresh in front of you, fudge made on site, and a caramel-coated corn snack called beaver nuggets that people describe with the kind of devotion normally reserved for a first love. It is the single most beloved pit stop in America, and it turned the most boring, most universally tolerated business on the planet into a cult. Here's what makes it genuinely wild, though. There was no genius invention behind this. No app, no venture capital, no tech disruption, no big idea you'd study in business school. The founder didn't discover anything. He just looked at the terrible gas stations everyone had silently accepted forever and asked one stupidly simple question. What if somebody just made a good one? What if it was clean, well-stocked, and run by people who actually treated you like a human being? He bet that if he built that, people would go out of their way to find it. He was right. Catastrophically, $2 billion right. And the most fascinating part of the whole thing isn't the brisket or the bathrooms. It's that the 2 men who pulled this off did it while telling Wall Street, every single year for 4 decades, to take a hike. To understand how, we have to go back to a guy, a dog, and a toothpaste commercial. Chapter 2. A dog, a cartoon, beaver, and one stubborn idea. The man who started all of this is named Arch Beaver Applin III. And yes, Beaver is right there in the middle of his actual name, which is going to matter in a second. Applin grew up in Lake Jackson, a small city on the Texas Gulf Coast south of Houston, where his dad was a home builder and the whole family ran on construction and hustle. He went to Texas A&M, studied construction science, which is the degree you pick when you fully intend to spend your life building big things for other people, and graduated in 1980 pointed straight at a career in skyscrapers and office parks. A totally normal, respectable path. And then his daily commute quietly hijacked the next 40 years of his life. Because every day, Applin kept stopping at gas stations and every single one was awful. Not dramatically awful, just that low-grade, normalized awful that a whole industry settles into when customers have zero leverage. Dirty floors, miserable staff, bathrooms that made you reconsider your life choices, shelves stocked like nobody who worked there had ever actually been on a road trip. And the thing that stuck in his head was, these places are profitable anyway. Not because they're good, because you have no other option. And Applin thought, what if you flipped that? What if you made one so good that people chose you on purpose, drove past 3 others to get to yours, and came back every single time? That loyalty, he figured, would be worth more than any highway corner monopoly his competitors were leaning on. Now, the name. This is my favorite part because it tells you exactly who this guy is. His childhood nickname, Beaver, came from Buc-ee the Beaver, a cartoon mascot from old Ipana toothpaste ads. And he had a Labrador retriever named Buck. So he smashed the two together, Buck plus Buc-ee, slapped a grinning cartoon beaver in a little baseball cap on the sign, and on July 28, 1982, opened a modest 3,000 square foot store in Lake Jackson. No grand vision statement, just 3 words that have never changed in 44 years. Clean, friendly, in stock. That's the entire philosophy. Every single thing Buc-ee's has ever become is just those three words, taken to an absolutely deranged extreme. But here's what almost nobody mentions when they tell this story. And it's the thing that actually made it bulletproof against Wall Street. Applin didn't build it alone. Speaking of cutting out the middleman to give you more for way less, that's exactly what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It reads your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts right from your finger, a week on a charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The surprise was the price. Under $40, a fraction of the big-name rings, because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Because Applin didn't build this empire alone, and his partner is the man almost nobody talks about. Chapter 3. Two men with a desk and no outside bosses. Meet Don Wasek. If Applin is the name everyone half remembers, Wasek is the man almost nobody talks about. And leaving him out is the single biggest gap in how people understand this company. From the very beginning, Applin and Wasek have been 50-50 partners. 50-50. And that number has never, ever moved. Not when they were scraping through the lean early years. Not when Buc-ee's became a full-blown Texas phenomenon. Not when analysts started tossing around billion-dollar valuations. And not, and you know this happened, when private equity firms started calling with offers that could have made both men richer than they'd ever need to be instantly. The split held. And here's why that matters so much. The partnership held because the two of them fit together almost perfectly. Think of it like this. Applin was the dreamer, the vision, the marketing instinct, the construction know-how that designed how a Buc-ee's should feel when you walk in. Wasek was the machine, the operational discipline that made that feeling actually happen at 6 in the morning, at 2 in the morning, every hour in between, across enormous stores staffed by hundreds of people, so consistently that someone who loved the Lake Jackson store in 1992 could walk into a brand new location decades later and feel instantly at home. One imagined the magic, the other made it repeatable. That is a rare, rare combination, and there's this one detail that I can't get out of my head. For the first 3 years, Applin and Wasek shared a single desk. One desk. Two grown men building a company sitting at the same desk. That's not a cute, humble beginnings story. It tells you how completely fused their working lives were, how much each one's success depended on the other, and how early they built the kind of bone-deep trust that a 50-50 partnership needs to survive. 44 years later, no public feud, no buyout attempt, no dilution, nobody trying to muscle the other out. And this is the foundation of the entire Wall Street can't touch them story. Because two aligned owners, holding 100% of the company between them, answer to absolutely nobody. No board, no investors, no quarterly earnings calls, no activist shareholders demanding they slash wages or cut corners to juice a number for 3 months. Just two Texans who agreed on what they were building and were free to build it exactly their way. Hold on to that because in about 2 chapters it becomes the whole ballgame. First, the decision that turned a regional chain into a national obsession. Chapter 4. The Luling Gamble that changed everything. For the first 21 years, here's the thing. Almost nobody outside Texas had ever heard of Buc-ee's. Texans adored it. The rest of the country had no clue it existed. By 2002, the chain had grown carefully along Texas highways, total sales sitting around $63 million, everything humming along nicely. A less ambitious pair of owners would have happily coasted on that forever. Applin and Wasek were not those owners. They had this idea rattling around. What if a convenience store wasn't small? What if you gave it room to become everything a road tripper actually needs, instead of the cramped little box the industry had always settled for? So in 2003, they picked a spot off Interstate 10 in Luling, Texas, a town of about 6,000 people sitting right in the sweet spot between Houston and San Antonio, and built something the industry had genuinely never seen. The Luling store opened at nearly 11,000 square feet, gigantic for the time, with more gas pumps than any competitor around. A sprawling retail floor, tons of seating, and bathrooms built with a level of care and grandeur the industry had always reserved for literally anything except the room customers needed most. And the message landed instantly. This is not a nicer gas station. This is a different species of thing that happens to sell gas. Travelers lost their minds over it, in a way that blew past anything Applin and Wasek had even predicted. Now watch these numbers, because this is where it stops being a nice business and becomes a rocket ship. Before Luling, $63 million in sales. By 2006, just 3 years later, $202 million, tripled. By 2015, $959 million. That's a nearly 16-fold explosion in about 12 years, and here's the kicker. They didn't do it by opening hundreds of stores. They did it by making each new store bigger and more jaw-dropping than the last. That became the whole strategy. Go bigger than anyone thinks is sane, plant yourself exactly where road trip exhaustion peaks, and make the experience so much better than the alternative that people don't just stop. They plan their entire trip around stopping. Then came the billboards, and honestly, they're a masterclass in psychology. A real study found that 40% of Americans actually worry about finding a clean bathroom on a road trip, and Buc-ee's billboards stab directly at that anxiety, mile after mile, with dad jokes and bathroom puns and promises of relief at the next exit. You might pass 19 of them before you even reach the off-ramp. By the time you pull in, you didn't decide to stop at Buc-ee's. They decided it for you 30 miles ago. But none of it, not the size, not the billboards, works without the thing that happens the second you walk through the doors. Chapter 5. Why people drive an hour for a bathroom. Trying to explain a Buc-ee's to someone who's never been is genuinely hard, because the scale alone sounds made up. A typical Buc-ee's runs between 50,000 and 75,000 square feet, with 80 to 120 fuel pumps out front. For comparison, a normal convenience store is about 2,500 square feet. So a single Buc-ee's is 20 to 30 times the size of what the industry calls a store. Calling them both convenience stores is like calling a rowboat and an aircraft carrier both boats. Technically true, completely useless. With over 100 pumps, there's basically never a wait for gas, which road trip families feel in their bones. But honestly, the fuel is almost a footnote. The real show is inside. Brisket, carved fresh right in front of you. A jerky wall with more varieties than you knew were legal. Fudge made on-site, flavors changing by location. A whole merchandise section of Buc-ee's apparel and gear that people buy as souvenirs and genuinely post about online. The kind of brand love normal companies torch hundreds of millions in ad budgets chasing and never get. And the beaver nuggets. Sweet, crunchy, caramel-coated corn puffs that have somehow become a multi-generational object of devotion. It's a snack with a fan base. And here's the quietly brilliant money move underneath all of it. A regular convenience store makes around 32% margins selling you national brands, your Cokes, your Lays, the same stuff everyone sells. Buc-ee's earns roughly 40% on its own proprietary products, the beaver nuggets, and the branded everything. By baking those house-made products into the emotional core of the brand, making them the reason you came, the thing you take home, the thing you show people, they built a high-margin retail empire that just happens to be wearing a gas station costume. It earns like a specialty store, but pulls the foot traffic of a fuel stop. That's the trick. That's the whole engine. Oh, and one more rule that sounds small but isn't. No trucks. Buc-ee's flat-out bans semis and 18-wheelers. That single decision changes everything. The parking lot, the vibe inside, who's actually there. By refusing to be a truck stop, they became the perfect stop for road-tripping families with money to spend. It's the Apple Store philosophy aimed at a gas station. Be exactly one thing for exactly one kind of customer, better than anyone alive. But a place this obsessive doesn't run on rules alone. It runs on people. And how Buc-ee's treats them is the most counterintuitive part yet. Chapter 6. Paying a cashier $18. An hour on purpose. Here's the piece of the model. The business press always underrates because it's harder to put in a spreadsheet than revenue per square foot. And it's the thing the company's own lawyer says makes the entire machine run. Buc-ee's starts its employees at $18 an hour. More than double the federal minimum wage to work at a gas station. Department managers pull around $31 an hour. General managers make over $225,000 a year. Running a Buc-ee's location can out-earn plenty of white-collar careers. And the benefits are almost suspiciously good for this industry. A 401k with a 6% match, 3 weeks of paid time off, full medical, dental, and vision. In an industry famous for paying as little as humanly possible and burning through staff, this is borderline heresy. So why do it? The logic, laid out by their general counsel, is beautifully simple and runs in a loop. Pay for the best people and you get the best customer experience. Deliver the best experience and customers come back. When customers come back, you make enough money to keep paying for the best people. Round and round. And the crucial insight buried in there is that cutting labor costs wouldn't improve Buc-ee's. It would quietly kill it. The entire competitive advantage rests on an experience so consistently spotless that people get loyal to a gas station, and that does not happen if the staff doesn't care. Those legendary bathrooms in a 75,000 square foot building, open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? They don't stay immaculate by magic. They stay that way because somebody's paid enough to genuinely care, around the clock. And the payoff is measurable. In the 2025 Dunnhumby Convenience Retailer Preference Index, Buc-ee's ranked #1 among all U.S. convenience retailers, beating second place by 17 points, with only around 55 locations, going up against chains running over 1,000 stores each. Let that land. They're the most loved convenience brand in America with a fraction of the footprint. That's not something you can buy with advertising. That's the return on treating people well. And here's where it all connects back to Wall Street. Because everything I just described is precisely the stuff a public company gets punished for. Chapter 7. Why they'll never let Wall Street in. This is the heart of the whole story, and it's right there on Buc-ee's own FAQ page, written with a bluntness that's honestly refreshing. Buc-ee's is privately owned. We have no plans at this time of becoming publicly traded. That's not corporate hedging. That's a wall. And once you understand why they've built it, everything else about this company snaps into focus. Because picture what happens the day Buc-ee's goes public. Suddenly there are quarterly earnings calls where analysts demand to know why you're paying cashiers $18 an hour when the industry pays half that. There are activist investors looking at the no-truck policy and screaming that you're leaving money on the table by turning away semis. There's relentless pressure to expand faster, cut a little here, trim a little there, shave the wages, speed up the build, all to make a number look good for the next 90 days. And that right there is the exact mechanism that has destroyed beloved brand after beloved brand throughout American history. You've seen this movie. A company is magical at a regional scale. It takes outside money to go national, and it arrives on the national stage as a hollow, watered-down ghost of the thing people fell in love with, because the investors optimized away the soul to juice the returns. Applin and Wasek have watched that exact tragedy play out across their industry for 44 years, and at every single fork in the road where they could have cashed in, they chose the other path. They've decided that the freedom to build the stores they want, hire the people they want, and pay them what the model actually needs is worth more than any check Wall Street could ever write. Now, in fairness, and this is the honest tension, that choice has a real cost. Industry analysts point out that refusing outside capital genuinely slows Buc-ee's down compared to rivals backed by deep-pocketed investors or public stock. They self-fund every store through bank debt instead, and each location runs $60 to $95 million to build. They're not perfect either. A 2026 customer service report card dinged them, and an attempt to plant a second Colorado store in the tiny town of Palmer Lake collapsed in 2026 after locals revolted with recall efforts, lawsuits, and opposition from both U.S. senators. Growing this thing isn't frictionless, but the trade-off is clearly one they'd make 1,000 times over, because slower, but yours beats faster, but owned by strangers. And the proof that the patient approach works is in how they're still expanding right now. Chapter 8. The Beaver builds a dam against the whole industry. Here's a fact that perfectly captures the discipline behind all of this. For the first 37 years, Buc-ee's never opened a single store outside Texas. Not one. While competitors race to plant flags nationwide and chase scale for scale's sake, Applin and Wasek spent nearly 4 decades making something basically invincible in one state before they exported it anywhere. And think about why only they could pull that off. No outside investor on Earth funds 37 years of "we're staying in Texas." An investor with a 10-year clock would have forced them national by year 5 and probably wrecked the whole thing. The Buc-ee's timeline required owners playing a game with no exit date. Exactly what two guys who own 100% of their company get to do. The refusal to take Wall Street's money wasn't just pride, it was the thing that made the patience possible. Then, in 2019, the dam broke. On purpose. The first out-of-state store opened in Alabama, and the expansion since has been methodical but accelerating. Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, Colorado, Virginia, with first-ever locations rolling out across Arizona, Arkansas, Ohio, Kansas, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Wisconsin through 2026 and 2027. And they've been collecting world records along the way. The world's largest convenience store in Luling at over 75,000 square feet, and the world's longest car wash in Katy, Texas at 255 feet. Those aren't gimmicks. They're just the natural endpoint of a company that's been building bigger than anyone thought reasonable for 44 years and being right every time. There's one image that sums up this entire empire. In June 2024, the original Luling Travel Center, the 2003 store that launched the whole national phenomenon, caught fire during its planned demolition, right as its brand new world record-breaking replacement opened next door. And Applin was reportedly standing there, in a Buc-ee's baseball cap, watching the building that started it all burn down while its bigger, better successor stood finished and glowing beside it. You couldn't script a better metaphor. The old version going up in flames, the next era already open for business, built by the same patient hands. He was right about the gas station, right about the bathrooms, right about the brisket, the beaver nuggets, the no truck rule, the $18 wages, the 50-50 handshake, and the decision to never, ever sell a piece of it to anyone. Two men from Texas, one desk between them for 3 years, and a stubborn belief that travelers deserved better than what they were being handed. Everything else, the billions, the records, the cult, is just what happens when you're right about all of it at once, for 4 straight decades, and you never once had to ask Wall Street's permission. The Beaver, it turns out, was quietly building a dam against the entire industry's current. And it's still holding. If stories about the people and families who built the most interesting empires in American business are what brought you here, subscribe to Global Status and we'll keep delivering them. See you in the next one.